Okay, here we go. So, hello everyone. Again, welcome back to Sunil's show. I'm Sunil Kumar Das, and welcoming you all to the new episode. On this podcast, we dive into exciting world of IT project management. We discuss project management, product development, business analysis, exploring the latest trends we have in IT project management. We cover it all. So, whether you are a fresher or a seasonal, professional project manager, just starting out in the tech industry, this podcast is your go-to resource. So this will help you understanding practical insights, expert tips, and engaging discussions. Now today, I'm excited to welcome our esteemed guest, Jeremiah. So Jeremiah, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sunil. I'm really glad to be here. Appreciate it. It's nice and early this morning. I got my cup of Joe ready to rock. So let's do this.
Yes. Okay,
Ready.
why no? Before we dive into the discussion, why don't we quickly start with a basic introduction about yourself, what you do, your experience, something about yourself to our audience.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been a project manager for 15, going on 16 years. So I did project management for 16 years, program manager for two
Mhm.
and a half but I was also trained for 3 years in program management. So I technically have 5 years of program management experience on top of that. And I'm also the founder of the Project Revolution, which is a company that I've started with my co-founder, Brooke Braga. And what we essentially do is create high voltage teams that know how to lead and deliver results through the power of project management, leadership, and business acumen. So it's a lot of fun there. And I'm also the co-author of a book called Executing Excellence with a bunch of incredible project managers here on our community. 10 of us got together and we worked with John Conley, and he had this brilliant idea for us to get together and put out this book, and it's called Executing Excellence. If y'all want to check it out, and I'm also the author of a book called The Project Management Pathway, which is your high performance manual. Basically, this book tells you how you can get that business rhythm of a project manager to learn and understand yourself at the deepest level so that you can actually be offensive in a defensive environment, be proactive in a reactive environment, so you can actually be your most powerful, motivated, high voltage, self-charging self at any time. But it's kind of a thick book because it requires you to do the work to go deep inside so you can understand yourself. And it's interesting enough, when we talked, Yara was just on your show, and a lot of the cool things that she was talking about. And I love Yara. By the way, thank you, Sarah. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed the show with you. Um, she talks about project leadership. And the cool thing about that is that, you know, the project management pathway really dives into that one core concept of self-awareness and self-regulation and the importance of it in project management. So essentially, to wrap this up, I am a project management nerd. I love it inside and out, and I'm excited to be here with y'all.
That's actually a rocking introduction, and it's so powerful. Packed one. Thank you so much for this brilliant introduction. Now to start with, we'll start with something very basic to understand is what's your thought, your perspective on project management? What project management is and what project management is not. So how can you distinguish these two? You know.
Yeah. So I'll first start with what it's not. So project management is not just administrative work. And a lot of people, it has a
Mhm.
bad rap for being an overhead cost that adds no value and is just chasing paper, right? And doing cleanup. Project management is really the art of leadership. And if you really look at it, if we take a step back and we look at the roles and responsibilities of a project manager
Mhm.
is the conductor, right? The project manager has to take all of the team members. We call them, think of a conductor, right, of an orchestra, and has to make sure that they're in the right seat of the chair. So they have to actually get them in the right chair, understand their strengths, their abilities, who they are, and what they do. Then they have to actually give them the right sheet music, right? So you got to say, here's your sheet music, and don't switch it, because that happens. Sometimes you give the guitar player the drummer stuff, and then you're gonna have some weird stuff, because don't do that. Guitar players don't need drummer stuff, right? Well, maybe they do. I think I do, unless you're Dave Grohl. If you're Dave Grohl,
Yeah.
but then you take that and you have to make sure that they're really making sure the whole team understands and can collaborate efficiently and be in sync and in rhythm. And once they get that rhythm, it creates that synergy and that resonance. Now, once you do that, you create high voltage. You create the self-charging energy of a team. And that's what a project manager does. They actually are the leaders in the orchestra, and they have to put it all together, get the requirements, get them in the chairs, get them moving, and then continually be able to inspire and motivate them to go through the performance, the show. And if you think about it, the show has ups and downs. Sometimes you're good. Maybe this chair over here is out of sync and they get off time, and the project manager's got to help them get it back in time, get everybody together. There could be conflict in the back where the drummer goes and hits somebody with a mallet. And I've seen it on a video recently, which was really funny. Hit somebody with a mallet, and the person's like, whoa, and the project manager's got to run and get the conflict, get them together. How do we figure this out? What can we do to really get back in sync? It is one of the things that I like to tell people, you're really, think about it like you're a CEO, you're a CEO in the
your own project.
Yeah, you are. And you're just like, so everything you're doing, you got to understand a strategic vision. Who do I need? How do I motivate them? Profit and loss, schedule, all these things you're working with. And not only are you inspiring your team is then inspiring your customers. They're working with your clients and the people external and all the stakeholders. So everything that we do as project managers is this art of leadership and inspiring and motivating, getting people to collaborate with each other. And it's very powerful if you do it right. And if it's done wrong, it can be the opposite of that. It can be very detrimental to people's health because everybody gets squashed. They get smaller. You can either make people big and get them empowered, or you can shrink them. So it's a magical art. And you know what? It's number 4. If you go back to LinkedIn right now, it's one of the 4 skills that LinkedIn's looking for right now. Right? When LinkedIn they did this research for 2023 of all of the top skills in the of people who are on LinkedIn Learning. So they went and said, what are the courses that people are doing on LinkedIn Learning? And then what are the top skills that they're trying to combat? And then they talked to CEOs and everybody, and what are they looking for? And they came up with 10 of them. Number 4 was project management. But here's the thing. When you look at all 10 of them, and if you know power skills, business acumen, right, the ways of working, if you really start looking at that and the technical aptitude, if you look at this, all of those things that they said actually roll under truly what it takes to be a project manager. So project management is really this ultimate advantage in business if people take it serious and understand that you have to train your people so they can train your people, and then create that really self-charging, high motivating culture. What are your thoughts?
That was engaging, Yes, see, as you mentioned, it's very, very important for being a project manager to understand the business acumen. We think a lot because that strategic vision, we are striving for, that make us to think why, what, how, when, what are the different things we need to go for, right? We need to take care of all these questions, and eventually we have to have the answer ready with us. And that's once we create that action plan, we start working on that. Starting from the day one till the day end, it's a continuous journey that we enjoy working on this one. That's great. Now, moving towards one thing, when we start building our team, I'll start with building a team for a project. So when we start building the team, being a project manager or project leader, you must understand what is your team good at. For that, you must follow some techniques, or methods, or you set some calls with the team. So how do you do that? What's your perspective on this?
So when you really think about like how project managers know what their team is good at, there's a couple different things they have to understand. And I want to go back to the business acumen piece. When we talk about project management, we first have to know what is the business case. Why are we doing the project in the first place? Right? And so the project manager has to understand that. They have to understand, what is the business case? What's the objectives of the project? And now, how does that fit within my organization? And then what is the end deliverable? We think about value. What is the value that this is going to deliver outside the world? You take those, right, to our external environment. You take that information, and as a project management, this is where you have to pull in on your leadership styles. And you have to say, this is where I have to become a visionary leader. And I need to understand exactly the roles, the requirements that are required in order for me to meet the objective of the business and then to meet the objective of the stakeholders, right? So you've got the company facing, you've got internally facing, externally facing. And then how does the project's only delivered, right? It's only absolutely delivered and satisfied when it meets the intended use. So what's the intended use? So once you go through those and you understand it as a project manager, you can then build your team. And now some businesses have like a functional matrix, right? So they have a shared service model where they have different project managers that work within the business so they can pull from resources. And other times you're bringing in. So whichever model you have to make sure that you're understanding the skill set needed of your team. And the only way you do that is elicit those requirements, elicit the business case, elicit the customer's requirements. Then you have to say, and this is where it really gets interesting, because you have to look back at your values, your mission, your vision. What are you trying to accomplish with this team? Right. And then what kind of emotionally intelligent? I'm always going to go back to emotionally intelligent, right? Because we are emotional creatures. It's what we do. We got technical and we got emotional. And we're going to be technical when we need to be, but a lot of us are reacting in the moment. Everything's we're generalizing, we're deleting, distorting things all the time. And so if we see something that doesn't really, you know, that strikes us as odd, we might get really nervous, and people, we get really freaked out. So you have to learn, what kind of resilience do I need? What kind of team members and skills and abilities from the technical aptitude do I need? And then you sit down and you say, this is where we have to do the work. We literally have to do work, right? And we sit down and say, my team, I need to figure out the skills that are needed with my project. And I need to figure out the skills of the team I have in a shared service. Do I have these team members? Do I have these levels of competencies? Do I have to go talk to these functional matrix? Do I have to go talk to these people? And you literally map this out and you find out where those collide. And that's the team you're building. And it's easier said than done. You have to really sit there and think about it, because you never know. You might be shy. And this is where the project manager has to step up. You might be missing a couple skills and you're trying to build this team. And so as you're building this team, you might have to step up and do 2 or 3 of these skills while you're looking for the additional resources that you need to bring in. And the next thing you have to do in order to really make sure that you've got this solid team is you need to make sure that you have a personal training protocol put in place that's going to keep them motivated through the stages of human development. You've got to move them to peak performer. So it's tricky, but you have to think deeply. Who do I need? What skill set? When do I need them by? And then how am I going to consistently maintain their expertise and their motivation throughout the life cycle of the project?
That's great. So again, for most of the entry-level project managers, there is a learning curve involved. The sharp learning curve involved when we deal with this kind of situation for the first time. So finally, we have to learn, we have to implement things while during the runway.
Mhm.
So one thing about as I mentioned, being a project manager, we must understand the end goal, the
Mhm.
objective of the project. That's
Exactly.
one part, very important. Second important thing is setting the goal within your team, or
Mhm.
conveying the final objective with the team. Right? This is very, very important. You as a project manager, you understand this, then
Mhm.
convey the same end goal precisely with your team. During this process, what's your thought? What tips you would like to share so that the objective is shared precisely with the team to set the expectation of the background?
This goes back to something that Yara was talking about earlier in the show, and I really like that because it's been one of the things that's really kept me motivated. I've worked on mega projects, and I've worked on a lot of small little on fire upside down projects, little tornado projects. So I have a wide range of expertise and skill within multiple industries, and throughout all of that, to keep the team motivated. I mean, one, you have to know the roles and responsibilities, and you have to create that document of what that actually is by looking at the objectives. But to really win the team over, you have to look at what you have, the art of achievement. We have to achieve a goal. We have an outcome, something that we really, really need to do here. And this is our job. Like we're literally being brought on. We're being compensated for our time and energy for a company or whatever, however it works out. Maybe you're a contractor, a freelancer, but you're being compensated for it. But then that's cool. So that's part of this bringing people on. But then you have to actually inspire them. And the way that you do that is the one thing that all people really want. There's multiple things, but a couple of the major things. They want growth. They want to contribute. They want to be seen. They need certainty. And they also like a little bit of variety, but not all of them do, but we do like some surprises, right? So the very first thing that we really want to work on is, how can I grow each individual team member? How can I communicate that I'm growing each individual team member? And how does that I cast that vision to them? So here's the roles and responsibilities on this project. You do the work. I need you to do these things. I've identified your skill set. I'm bringing you on for this particular thing, and you're going to have to cross over because there's depth and breadth of what we do as project managers, right? And even with our specialists and our coordinators and our engineers, they all have a skill set, and we know what that is. So we bring them on and we say, this is the technical part. This is the technical part. And then here's the empowering part. Here's the vision. Here's why we're doing it. And then at the end of it, here's what we're going to do to grow you as a person. Here's the things that we're going to, at the end of the day, like if your skill set, let's say that, on a level of technical, you bring on somebody and they're not exactly where you need them, but they have all of the capability, all of the potential, all the possibility. So you really understand, like, I can bring this person up. I got to work a little bit. I got to teach them leadership. I got to mentor and coach them. So you tell them, throughout this mentoring and coaching, I see you as a here and I want to help you get to here. And you get that agreement and that buy-in. And as you're working with them, you have to be congruent. It's called integrity, right? You have to be congruent with what you say you're going to do. So what you do is you actually get in there and you work with them. And if you show up, you as the leader, you show up constantly working with that team, making sure that they're understood, they're heard, they know their roles and responsibilities, you write it out, understand it up front, and then you're consistently doing what you said you were going to do to grow them, you will have a team that will be unstoppable. They will show up loving their job. They will show up on fire. And when things suck, because they will, like, well, I'm not like deluded or blind, blind optimism, right? It's when things go bad, you'll see them rise to that challenge. And they'll later have the story of how we as a team did this thing to do the thing that nobody else could do. And we did it. And we came out of the trenches and we worked through it. And you'll start hearing that word, we, never I. And that's how you really
That's the point.
empower them. Yep. That's how you empower them. And it works in all those programs. I did it the hard way. I did the blunt force trauma, just try to plow through the requirements and let's just go. We can do it, and just plowing through it. And it was like, there was something missing. And I had that distinction about leadership. And I was like, we're really all leaders, right? We're either leading, we're following, or we're managing. And it's true, because sometimes you have to lead and inspire and really get people motivated. Other times we have to manage our tasks. We have to manage our own selves, be self-regulated, right? Make self-energized. And we have to also manage the tasks and the people around us. Like that's the management part. Like Yara was talking about, you have a project leader and you have a project manager. And sometimes we have to show up and manage. Other times we got to zip it and listen and follow, because we hired people. We brought people on that are way better at what we do than we think. And our job is to put them in the right chair to play the violin, right? And I don't play the violin, but they do. And you need to sit back and just enjoy it and say, we're all on time and let's do this. That's how you really empower your team. It's the delegation. We talk about that too. Empower them. Let them know that you care about them and you want them to grow. Give them 70% of how people actually learn on a team when you start going through it is actually doing the work. 20% is us having the conversation, just talking peer to peer, and 10% is them reading on it. So you gotta make sure that you go back and let them read. Here's some stuff, read about it. Here's 20% of the work, and then here's 70% they're out there doing it, and you're coaching and supporting them.
So that's one of the leadership traits that we have, coaching and mentoring team. Mm-hmm. Sorry. So on that note, I would like to understand, as you mentioned, delegation is one of the key here, right? Mm-hmm. So when we try to delegate, we are just extending some of our work or activities on the team so that they can start learning or working on that. Mm-hmm. Now, on that note, there'll be some pushback from the team. Why would I go ahead and do this one? That's not my responsibility. Sometimes we face this pushback, Mm-hmm. So how can we convey that this is only for your benefit? And once you start taking up this new responsibility, that's how we grow together within the team. And once you release from this project, that's how you'll achieve more, outside of your work as well, right? So that's a great mindset. How would we convey this one to the team?
So that's a great question, Sunil. And this is where a lot of teams and project managers or businesses fall down. And it's one of the core things that I work on in my programming. When I'm out there working with other businesses and I'm trying to help them, one of the very first things I have to do is I have to understand what is our business rhythm, our core norms, and our team norms, how we are going to interact with one another. And one of the things when you really start working, you bring people on, you have to set this up in your interviewing process. This starts to interviewing. Hey, so if you get somebody a candidate goes through all of the different cycles, right? What you have to do is you have to stop and say, we have a team norms, and in our team norms, we do X, Y, and Z. And one of them is that maybe we have to multitask. Like, we're going to understand that your strengths. And when I say multitask, that's a different whole story. Like we got the debunk of the multitask and the concepts or the context switching. And I'm a believer that you need to focus and flow and get in deep work, right? Just so you know. But when I say that you're going to have to be task switching, meaning your role, your skills might have to be here. and you're going to be great at doing this one thing, but I'm going to need you at times to do this. And it's going to be something that's going to reinforce your strengths, right? It reinforces it. So you might not be as good at it now, because I'll tell you one thing you have to strive to do as a project manager. If somebody absolutely, our job is efficiency, right? We are all about point A to point B as quick as possible, right? And sometimes we have a 8.1, 8.2 as we get there. We kind of roll around, little incremental deliverables, but you have to get there as quick as possible. And if you if you know that Jack over here hates Excel, hates it, sucks at it, not good at it, can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But he's a really good connector, more running the teams, like Scrum Master, really good at getting in there, running the team, keeping us all going. But if you give him an Excel spreadsheet and he's going to suck, and you're like, I need you to build me an Excel spreadsheet right now, and you need to go do that, you are wasting time, resources, energy on it. You are. And it's like you can go Google it. Now you're spending money, all these things. And then you're starting to kind of tick off an employee because he's like, I'm not good at this. And you're having me do it. And it's like, you need to grow to be Excel. Well, what if they're never good at it? What if they're never going to ever be good at it? They're just not those type of people. There's people out there who are certain things you're just not going to be good at. Back to our team thing. You have to understand that. So when you have a team of people who are, and you're growing them, you got to say, here's the core norms. This is how we do business. This is how we interact. This is the guidelines that we're going to live by. And they're fun. Like, you have to do it. Like, for me, I'm all about creating a high voltage culture. We have to have our business rhythm. What is our rhythm, our sync that we have to get into, our expectations to work with one another, right? And then you have to say, what is the revolution? What is the vision that we have to cast to really do that? And then what's our stage presence? How do we need to show up? Who do we need to be? When do we need to be it? Right? Those are the core things that I focus on, especially when I'm working with companies and then within my own company. And inside of those, there's these little team norms. And part of the business rhythm is that it's not that it's not my job. Is it whose job is it? And how can I help? How can I assist? You put rules around that people buy into in team norms. And one of the big ones that I like to do is when you have conflict with people, we call it badge on the table. Take your badge, put it on the table. And there's a book out there, I forget the name of the book, where this guy did it, and he called it fish on the table. Basically, there's a stinky fish under the table, and we got to pull it out and look at it. And you put it on there, and you have a norm that if I know that all of a sudden a team member comes up and sets that down, we're going to have a conversation. And that's a norm that we establish. So the power of team norms, the power of company norms, and then the team norms, the culture, the subculture, all of those things established up front will let you counter the objectives of people and the things that they're going to normally say. It's not my job. I'm not supposed to do this. I don't like all these things that we know people are going to technically say because we've been around a long time. We got data that tells us this. We establish that up front and we communicate it regularly. We live and die by our values and our core norms and our team norms. It is a battle, and we are going to do it together. It's a lot of words.
That's
Oh, we lost him. Good morning, everybody. I got my coffee. I think I'm the only one on the show right now. We lost SUNIL. So it's really important, though, for everybody out there to just really understand that if you want to build a high voltage self-charging team, that you really need to make sure that you're focused on communicating the lowest minimal expectations that you have. And he's back. SUNIL's back. You left.
Yes. So one thing about this one. Sorry, what's that?
I said I was going to start singing if you were gone for too long.
That's great. So one thing, when we're discussing about building a team, now there's certain organizational structure where you don't have authorization that people will report to you directly, right? So you will borrow resources from the functional manager or the delivery manager. They are their boss. So when you start a project, you just give them a documentation. Hey, this is what the skill set requirement, and based upon the assigned people, 5 members up to 6 members, 7 members. Once you borrow the team members, you have a team for your temporary project. That's one thing. Second thing is, you as a project manager, you work on them because their motivation to make them on top of everything for their growth. It's your responsibility. Certainly that they don't report to you. However, it's your responsibilities as they work under you for a project. Now, given this situation, sometimes we need to be mindful of we are not jumping into these roles or their roles and responsibilities and within that we need to make things clear. So in this situation, right, how would you ensure the team is working on this one and you are working on their career progress or personal growth or professional development, right? Given the organization structure, it's not your responsibility,
Mhm.
but indirectly, as they work for you as a team for your project, it's your responsibility as well.
This is so I've worked in a lot of functional matrix shared service model project, and I'm going to say that I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I've learned how to what it boils down to your code of ethics as a project manager. So
Correct.
when you have a functional manager and here's the resources I need, and you give them basically have to give them a scope of work, right? Or a work authorization document, right? To get it approved that I can borrow the resources. And it could be a
Correct.
project charter, whatever the company, determines. And when you get them, the it's up to you to it doesn't matter if it's a shared service or if it's somebody you're bringing on new to the company. Your job is to inspire them. Your job is to manage, project manager, project leader, the team. And nobody gets, just because they've already worked with the company doesn't mean they're going to get any less treatment, right? Any less from you. And that's a code of ethics thing. So one thing I mean, I've worked on, this is what I've done. Here's the thing. You want people to go back when they work with you, right? Because when you start working in a shared service, and this is a pro tip as a project manager, we need a bell. Pro tip, pro tip right here. When you're working in a shared service and you have a team of 20, 30 people that are working on multiple projects around, right? What happens
Correct.
if you really want to be great, you want to be phenomenal? You have to understand that you only get the skill set or the competencies of the people who are available at the time. And you might only get 40% of their time, 50% of their time, certain times, right? So what you have to do is you be the person that inspires them. Be the person that's constantly working on them always. Okay, Yara said this too. I love Yara, by the way. She said this in there. She said, people remember how they feel, how you made them feel, not the things that you said or did. They know how you made them feel. People think about you, man, I get around that person. They make me just feel so good. Right now, what's going to happen? Here comes the pro
That
tip.
synergy we create.
Yep. And here's the pro tip. You ready? By
Yeah.
constantly building a rapport with your team members and all these people in different areas and the functional managers and stuff, when you need somebody, when things are bad and you've got your core team and you're going, but you really need this one person's skill set, and you can go to them and say, hey, I really need your help. They're going to be like, I love that person. You know what? I'm going to make time for you. And not only do they make time for you, they give it their best. They don't just say, this guy came to me. He really needed me to help me. I'm kind of flooded, but I got to do it for the company. And they're over there just paper whipping, trying to get it through. And you get a 40%er. They will rock it for you because you make them feel incredible. You're constantly working on their growth. If you give them tips when you meet them, you're constantly building them up as people. The project manager, project leader, they'll do anything for you. So the pro tip is simply know your allies. Treat everybody equally, no matter what people you're working on. Make them feel empowered and show that stage presence. And when you need something, they'll be there
That's
for you. Pro tip,
that's
seriously.
important. And I personally believe, when during this one, a lot of feedback sessions are involved. And giving feedback is much important while
Oh yeah.
you're building the team or you're working on a project, right? So when you say giving feedback, it's all about constructive feedback. People, it's not about feedback, it's all about your observations. When you throw feedback, it's always people take in a negative way and they feel like very overwhelmed. But when you say your observations, they certainly there is room for enhancement. So could you share some strategies or some tips? So when we are about to share any feedback, what are the certain things we need to take care so that it's a win-win situation and people will work on it. They love to take the feedback.
This goes back to this goes back to the vision. You always start with your vision. It goes back to everything I'm talking about, the top down. You've heard this, right? We always say that, it's top down, bottoms up, top down. When we have
Correct.
problems with our culture, it starts at the top. You have to, when I talked about the badge on the table, remember that? So if people are having conflict, one of the things that you want them to know is that, hey, I'm getting ready to give you feedback, whether it's good or bad. We don't ask why questions. Now, we all know this. If everybody works in psychology, right, knows a little bit about human behavior. The minute somebody comes into a room and you say, why did you do that? They get defensive because they've heard it all their life. And it's programmed into us that this is not to be the greatest thing. You have to sit down and ask what questions, right? How do we get to here? What can we do to be better moving forward? You got to figure out ways to use a language, because language is powerful. So language can either, build countries, destroy countries. I mean, it can do amazing things.
Correct.
Words are powerful. So you have to understand how you're going to communicate with your team. So that's the thing that you install on the front end. You say, hey, this vision, how are we going to do this thing that we're going to do? And how are we going to communicate it? You set up your communication metrics. So when you have people and you have conflict and they're not feeling, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to set up this coaching one-on-one, show up, figure out those incremental goals and run it like a project. So set up if you're really busy, and a lot of project managers, and I've heard this, and I've worked with a lot of PMs, and we get like, I can't do the one-on-ones. I constantly canceling them. And it's like, do you cancel meetings with yourself? Set up a meeting with yourself. I was talking with Kayla McGuire. It was a Monday. What's today? No, it was 2 days ago, Thursday. And I was talking with Kayla, and she said that she recently started setting up meetings with herself and honoring that. And in the project management pathway, I really talk deep about honor your meetings with your team against congruency, right? To be congruent, as if you would honor a meeting with yourself. And I mean, how many people here set up meetings with themselves? So to inspire your teams, to keep them motivated, identify those tools or those incremental milestones of what success looks like, treat it like a little mini project and run it. But set that from the top down, communicate clearly, but then have protocols in place for conflict resolution. We are going to have a tough conversation right now, right? If you're doing performance reviews and you can see that performance is, and I mean performance on the project standpoint, like, your team's like
Correct.
there's underperformance happening. The worst thing that you can do. So how many of us go into a room and it's like, if you see tension and we're like, let's magnify the tension. Hopefully not a lot of us. You have to know the art of deflating, or I'm not sorry, deflating, but deconflicting the room when you see tensions high. How can we elevate people's state, change their mind, change the story? Happens every time in it. So if you go in there, people get into a crazy eight's, what they call it. And you have to walk in there and be able to see that my team is getting ready to, is having a hard moment. How can I elevate them to a powerful state, a powerful moment? And then how can we figure out the root of the problem? Even if it's team members, they'll take accountability for it, right? It's all in your presentation, how you show up, how you talk to them, the rules. And I say rules because everybody's, I don't want rules. We all have rules. They don't have to be these hard, like everybody die on the vine rules. But everybody wants to know, they really want to know where are the parameters that I have to play in. And if I want to break those parameters, are there even rules around how to do that? And there might be, because rules can be broken if we're going to innovate and set the world on fire, right? So you have to have that in place up front every time. And it's so important. Know your core norms, know your communication, know your conflict resolution style. And there's so many models and methods out there that you can use. Implement them. But the trick is communicate to your team. So when we're talking, and I'll just talk about this really quick. In the stages of team development, right? When we talk about forming, storming, norming, performing. Yep. Here's the thing. When people are first coming on, you have to tell them that, hey, you're new to this project. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just, I'm going to be more coaching and directive to you so that you get the leadership that you need to get moving. Number one thing people do is say, here's the scope of work. They shove it off on them and go do your work and call me if you have any problems. And then the person's like floundering. So what happens is they go to storming, and storming's like, I didn't get trained. I don't like the people. Everybody doesn't talk to me. I feel unappreciated. I'm not significant. I'm not growing. I'm not I'm not being able to contribute to the team the way I should. And they leave. They go look for a new job. Our job is to be able to communicate each one of those stages of development, how we're going to get you through each one of them so that you can then be empowered to peak performer. And the quicker I get you there, the better off we are. And that's through communication, rules, norms, all of that communication down to them will make that happen. But you as a project manager, set up your one-on-ones, get with people, show up with the right state, show up to inspire, ready to go, knowing that they could be deflated, and you have to elevate them, get them to the right level. And then you can move through whatever problems and conflicts you might have. And stay away from why as much as possible. If you're doing the 5 whys, like I get like, we had a problem, let's do the 5 whys. Do the 5 whys. It works. But if you end up with, somebody who's really underperforming, Look at yourself first. How's my leadership affecting them? And then go back. When you look at yourself, because it's a mirror, they're a reflection of your leadership, then go back and go through, do your own whys internally, and then ask them, what can we do to be better? What can we do to perform better on this? Use data to drive our decisions. Our data shows this. What are we doing wrong as a team? What can we do to help? And what can we do to next steps to mitigate this, to move forward in a different direction? Those questions, how can we help? Will then deconflict the stress and the tension in your team, and it will create that synergy needed to get them to where they'll ask their own whys. They'll go deeper themselves and figure it out. Or, you might have to do something different, and you're back.
Yeah. Yes. So there are a lot of things when we start building a high performing team during this forming time. So there are a lot of steps we, as a project manager, we have to have a to-do list for us personally, and every time we need to focus on that, what I'm doing for today, what I should do, how I should communicate, and all these questions, all the answers we must have, so that easily we can communicate with our team, and that will easy make this forming process very easy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's great one. So one thing about from you, I need to understand. I would like to understand is what's one common myth about the project management that you would like to debunk?
The common myth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few, but one of the biggest ones is that it goes back to it's just, and I said it earlier about paper pushing, and it's like unneeded overhead. So a lot of people, when they stand up a PMO, a lot of programs do this, right? So if you look back, 86%. So give you a couple stats here really quick. 1 out of 3 projects are successful, right? So 33% of projects are successful. And so, the Standish Group did this whole case study on 40,000, projects over a 10-year span. And they came back and they understood that 1 out of 3 projects were successful. So that meant 33%, right? 66% are bad. And the question was like, well, why? And it was like, well, bad estimate, bad, planning, bad execution, all these different things. And they came up with a couple of them, but they were either, didn't meet the intent. So they failed completely, or they were just challenged because they couldn't hit the scope, schedule, and cost. Right. And so it goes back to, well, people are like, well, if that's the case, why do we need project management? And it's like, you need proper project management. You need to train your people. So the very first thing that people do is, so the highest performing businesses out there, 86% of them, 83 or 86, 86, they have a PMO, processes in place, standardization, and they're actually in the top percentage of actually being successful, right? They're delivering on their one project. The rest of them are struggling. They're challenged. And to really debunk it, it's like, well, project management is too many processes. Project management is, paper pushing. So they just think about the paper. It's unneeded overhead. So they cancel a PMO. They'll get rid of it. It's like, well, we don't really need a PMO. We'll get rid of it. The team will do well on their own. And that's not really the case, because where businesses fall down the most is that they're in it. So I believe 2 big things here. Businesses are projects that are making projects. And somebody be like, oh, it's a program or it's a portfolio. And I'm like, a business itself is a project. Like, we could go into semantics about it, but a business itself is a project because there's a start and an end. There's a life cycle of a business. There's a start and an end of each one of those life cycles. There's transition, there's phases, there's incremental deliverables that you have to do to really get yourself to a peak business performing, right? And I mean, all of these things are similar. And so when you're down into the projects, when you get into actually working your product, you need to run your business at same with it's business. Project management's business operations 101, just so you know. You get down to that next level and you need to understand your development approach. How do we actually do work? And people don't do that. They're like, I've had businesses that I've worked with that were like waterfall. They're like, we're going to be waterfall project management. And then it's like, but they don't even like project management, but they're doing waterfall. But guess what? They're an agile company, right? They were building things they were like, well, these Gantt charts, they're never right. Everything's, and they're always upset and they're running people around. So the whole team is being reactive because they picked the wrong development approach, right? They didn't implement the right project management process. And it was like, and it's like, so I've worked with these businesses that don't do that. So project management is the ultimate advantage in your business, in your company. And it's scalable, and so you don't have to. So the minute you say that, and this is another big, like debunk. Now we got a debunk bell, right? If you're a small business and you really want to grow and you really want to be powerful, get your foundation together now. It doesn't mean that you have to take the PMBOK and install the PMBOK or the, Prince or whatever you are, Agile Safe. You don't have to go install the whole thing. There's incremental little baby steps that you can take throughout it. Think of it as a project. Go out there and run these incremental little deliverables and grow your project management maturity as your business grows. Never implement too much. Don't overdo it. Go specific to the phase of development that you're in. A lot of people don't do that. They say it's unneeded overhead. It's a waste of time. They got this. And that is wrong. And it's a powerful, powerful tool that the minute that you, the company or any business actually gets it done, guess what? They become part of that 86%. And those numbers, we got stats out there, prove it. So I debunk the fact that project management is not useful for in all phases of business. I think it's a core concept that needs to be installed. Part of your business development and your business model needs to be project management. And what level do I need it in? And you will dominate your industry quicker than everybody. You'll outdo your competitors. Go get project management.
That's great. Correct. Yeah. So when we consider business as a project itself, so we have a lot of things to do because the business has started and ended, and we have phases. We have different strategies to come in, right? We have different, business plans. We have, to put together. We cannot go whole at a whole, right? Step by step. So that's when project management principles or the methodologies will definitely help, and altogether the mindset that we bring here and making the business run. That's great one. So one thing I look to understand when we have a team, so we have different type of personalities. We have to deal with different type of personality, and we have different people. What's the benefit of it? Having different people, different type of people, let's say.
So this goes back to innovation. If you want to innovate, right? If you want to innovate, you have to be diverse. You need new perspective and new voices, right? Because I'm made up of my experiences, me as a person. I'm made up of my experiences, my moments in time, and I can only do so much. And so at one point, I'm going to give you all my ideas and all the things that I want. And if we want to grow, we need to be around people that stretch our person, stretch what we know, and that are really good. So for one, most people are just not, you've got your key-shaped people and your T-shaped people, breadth and depth of the skill. So T-shapes really, I've got a breadth and a depth of one major competency and skill, right? And your key-shaped people, think of it like a key with a bunch of teeth. They have breadth and depth of, multiple
the knowledge.
Yep. And some knowledge, right. And skills. So some of it's going to be longer and some of it's going to be not as good. Well, those areas where it's just kind of like you're dabbling, you kind of get it. Like I can build a spreadsheet, but I'm not great at it. Right. And I love spreadsheets, by the way. And if you get, I don't know why. It's like you get creative. You can do anything with them. Maybe that's why I love them. And it's like, but then I don't use them. I build it and then I put it away and I never use it. I don't know why. It's like it's the creative in me. So you've got these, some skills and abilities that you're not great at. And you have to, you need to put people in place to grow those. And when you have new people around you, they're going to help expand that knowledge. And so innovation comes from new perspectives. And it goes back to this one saying simply, right? It goes back to this one thing. What got you here won't get you there. And it's true. What got you here, you've got a baseline, you've hit a threshold, won't get you there. You can leverage it, but at one point you've done as much of it as you can. How do I maximize, optimize, standardize it, and then strategically innovate it? And that's different perspectives, different voices, different processes, different people, and trying to find. And if you're in a business, you're looking for a different competitive advantage, something else that you can bring to the market.
Right. So it's all about innovation, right? So when you understand the innovation, and that's how having different people in your team with diverse perspectives will certainly help you.
100%.
That's great. Yeah. So when moving forward,
but one thing real quick, in your personal life, being around, they say that you're some of the 5 people in business. When we just talk about business, we get really mechanical about it, like innovation, strategically innovate, bring different perspectives. But we have such a diverse world and different cultures that we can learn from that can really enrich who we are as people. And so if you really, really, really want to grow yourself to the next level, that diversity in your life is so important. Just you as a person, if you want to grow as a leader and like get out of the business or building a team, put yourself around people that are like, that you want to, that you admire in some way, that you just like, I really like this trait about them. And so put yourself closer to them, put yourself closer to the 5 people that, that if you're around them and they're all diverse, they all got something different, inspire you in a different way, because likes attract likes, and you will become the sum of the 5 people that you're attracted to and that you hang out with. You just do. It's just a law of human nature. And you'll grow. Your growth will be exponential. It will never stop because you're constantly growing and innovating yourself. So we talk so much about business, but all these concepts are, how do you actually become a leader? That's like the question. How do you actually become a leader to do these things we're talking about? And it's self-exploration of your internal environment, and then externally manifesting that by putting the people in place that you need to take you there. It's really powerful. We lost SUNIL again. He's gone. It's just me. We're going to start playing guitar, everybody.
I'm not sure. After some time, probably it's because of the browser or something. Next week, definitely I'll troubleshoot it. But yeah, I'm back now.
Yeah, we wrapped it up. We rocked the show. It was great.
Awesome. So one thing about all over across the world, all the companies and all the businesses now shifting towards the remote culture. They're adopting this after the COVID situation, the pandemic. They adopted this new culture called work from home, right?
Mhm.
So given this remote work, now do you think, what's your thought in this one? Walking, because as the project manager, you have to deal with your team across geographic locations, right? So what's your thought on this? Does walking from different locations or places affect a team's performance?
This is cool. Like that. So I learned a lot during COVID. I think we all did. So everybody, if I could see you, raise your hand if you learned a lot during COVID. Um, I learned a lot about I learned a lot about myself personally from an achievement standpoint, that I will work myself into the ground, because a lot of the time in the office, you have what people call management by walking around. And so when I was working from home, I could get in flow. I could just get in flow and I would get a lot done. I think there's a lot of power in work from home. And if people and companies, if they really, because there's even a financial aspect to this that's really good.
Correct.
You can literally, people working from home, they don't, maybe you have to put some money in for their computers, things like that, but you don't have to have the physical brick and mortar location. You can actually get rid of that. And that saves a lot of money and put that into other things to grow your business and your team. There are so many powerful tools right now online to bring people together. You and I right now, right? We're 24 hours difference. We're talking, right? Like, I mean, I think we're 24 hours difference. Are we 24 or 12? 12.
I think 9 plus, almost 9.5.
Yeah. And difference. And we're talking, from different parts of the world. And that's cool. And I mean, we're sitting here having a good conversation, and we can do that now, and you can do that with your teams. But the trick is that I do believe that we do need that physical connection. Like last night, I went out to this business thing here in Portland, Oregon. And it was like, there was a lot of power of us being in the room and being that social butterfly and running around talking to people, that if we were all online here, that you just missed that. So you've got to find those moments to bring the team together if you can. And I understand that there's a lot of companies that are working with people all over the world and they can't do that. And and there's ways to build your team. But there's also, if you can co-locate periodically and bring events together, if your company's big enough and thriving, hold an event and bring your team so they can really meet and people and get to know each other. Figure out a way to get access to bring people together, and you'll see a little bit more synergy. But I do think working from home is powerful, and I think working in person is powerful. And I'm a hybrid everything. I think hybrid is really the method. Figure out a way to do both.
Correct.
And you're gonna have a powerful team. And then
will you have the balance?
Yeah, you can't. But it goes back to anything in project management that you and I are going to talk about, is like, how do you communicate? What are the meeting etiquette rules for us? Because the one thing that I had a hard time with was my team that I worked with in COVID, we were cameras on because we loved each other. So when we were talking to each other, it was like, we wanted to, I haven't seen you in a minute. What is that? You know, we were all pumped. And so it was excited to talk to each other in our meetings. And even daily, we would just turn on the camera and go, and we would get stuff done. And we were very focused and very aware because we genuinely wanted to talk to each other. So we had to have that physical eye to eye. Then we would get in meetings with other people and other groups, and it was like 50% of the cameras were off, some were on. And you heard a lot of, you know, going on. People weren't focused. And then you also, when you were like, well, okay, so did everybody get this? Any questions? Like dead silence. So there was not that. You got to be like, I want to say cameras on so you can really get and feel people. And so I think that's powerful for me, you know, personally. It says I want to get all of my levels of communication, formal and verbal and nonverbal, so that I can truly understand if my team's doing okay, because we ran ourselves into the dirt during COVID. A lot of us did, because we were high achievers. We just worked 12 hours. You're home. You're working at 9, whatever time, because work was now part of home. So you can gauge really quickly if somebody's burnt out, how they're doing, if you can just see them a little bit. So I think you have to have protocols in place as well. I know you do. You have to have something in place to communicate and be able to work with your teams. But performance metrics, feedback loops, man, get some metrics out there. That'll tell you everything. I love it.
My next question, yeah, my next question is related to something related to this one. Now we all hate micromanagement, right? But we would like, as a project manager, to be updated, to stay updated with the progress, what team is doing now.
Mhm.
So there are two things here. So how do you let your team work freely? That's one part. Why still you keep an eye on them or on the progress? How do you do that parallelly so that it's not about micromanagement, but you stay updated?
So I have this is a debunk. We need to debunk micromanaging. Remember I said lead, follow, and manage. You do these three things, right? You're either leading, you're following, and you're managing. There are core expectations of a team that we have to live by. We have to live and die by as a team. That we have to do work. And we have to, and goes back to one of these core norms I was talking about that I have within my own company and what I actually teach people: stage presence, the art of commitment, doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And if not, how do you communicate that effectively? We have to have guidelines. So we talk about autonomy. If you go back to, you know, Daniel Pink's book on, you know, motivation drive is what it's called. He talks about autonomy and mastery. And autonomy is giving people you know, they can do whatever they want when they want to do it. But people want guidelines. They want bumpers, you know, because if you just let people do whatever they want when they're going to do it, you're not going to get the right result. I had a company I was talking with who had that happening, 2 different project managers, 2 different methodologies, or maybe it's 3 different project managers. Anyway, a bunch of different project managers, a bunch of different methodologies, not communicating with other, doing what they want, and almost tanked them. That's bad. So put your bumpers in place. And you have to say, this is our expectations. Set expectations. What are our goals? What are our outcomes? And when does it do? How are we going to do it? I love the idea of a stand-up meeting. Now, some people are like, oh, more meetings. Meetings suck if they suck. If you've got people in meetings and we're not learning or growing or doing anything that's productive, there's no agenda, don't go. If there's no, so if you don't have an agenda, don't go. If there's no purpose for you to be there, then you ask the question, you know, audit your meetings regularly to see if you can get them off the map. But you got to have a stand up with the team. And actually, to me, a stand down is more important, because if I'm standing up my team during the day to see what they're doing, I've already lost a day. My team needs to come to work ready to rock without me talking to them. We don't need to get together today and say, hey, they need to come in and work. And at the end of the day, we look at what we did, look at where we're at, look at where we're going. The next day they rock, and keep it simple and concise with an agenda. That's powerful. That's keeping your thumb on the pulse. Like if you think Scrum, that's why, you know, Scrum managers in there. That's just a nice way of keeping our thumb on the pulse. And performance, if you have like performance that's dipping, have a min max, set that again at your top level. This is my min, this is my max, this is how I do it, this is why I do it, and have that, and then communicate to your team, this is what we're doing. Now, the micromanagers, when you really see a micromanager, and I've lived this so hard, fear-based environment. They are not psychological safe. Your team cannot talk to you. They will not, because if you come to you, you're going to jump down your throat. So there's a difference between we have to manage and do what we said we were going to do when we said we're going to do it. We are professionals and we act as professionals, project professionals, right? We're project managers, we're project professionals. And we live and die by our code of ethic, right? This is how we work. Versus fear-based environment, one person who thinks they know all, see all, be all. and they're going to come in there and they're going to when they delegate work, they kind of delegate the work because they secretively want you to fail. It's an ego driven narcissistic world when this happens. And I said, so those are some big words. I just like bam, micromanager. I just slapped them hard, but I've lived them. And they're out there and we have to combat that. And we're at a war against micromanagement, but we're not at a war against, actually managing and showing up and doing what we said we're going to do. When I talk about a high voltage culture, that's what I'm talking about. Self-charging people who know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to do it, why. They know why they're doing it, who they're doing it, why, how they're doing it, and what they're doing it for. They're mission-driven people, right? Not ego-driven people. There's a difference between it. And your micro, when you get on the micro side of that, the micromanager, it's all about me, and they're trying to look good. And so that's why it gets misconstrued. And when we say debunk it, that some people are like, well, this person asked me if I was doing my task and they're a micromanager. And the question you have to ask yourself is did they ask you why you were doing this task because you committed to doing something on time and it's critical to the project's objectives? Is it on critical path? Is there a lot of risk and it's on our watch list? And if you haven't communicated that as a leader in your little stand-ups, hey, here's our watch list of risks. How are we tracking here, here, and here? Are they coming to fruition? Is there probability high impact, low impact? Where's it at? Are you tracking on these tasks that are on critical path? Manage the critical path and everything else will work out. Hey, here's my critical path. Are we here? And even if you're in a hybrid or it's a Scrum environment, there's a critical path to what you're doing. You just got to figure it out. It's like, so are we managing critical path? And if everybody's like, yeah, and they're good, cool. If not, and nobody's communicated it, you're going to be on fire, reactive environment, and you have to step in and say, we got to do it. And people are like, micromanaging. No, I'm mitigating future risks as a project manager because we are, as a team, are not living up to our code of ethics and what we said we we're going to do. That's not micromanaging. That's getting it done. And you have to communicate that. But if a project manager does that correctly up front with communication on how they're going to manage and be the leader and directive versus, each stage of development of the life cycle even, then it becomes more of a team norm and that team understands it and they want that because you're leading them to success versus ego-driven project management, which does not work. It absolutely will destroy a team. It will destroy a team. You'll lose your clients. The opportunity lost of the clients when you lose them could be billions of dollars. Your company could tank if you hire an ego-driven, a non-mission driven person. I think we lost Sunil again. And this is a really core thing when it comes to management is we have to, when we talk about emotional intelligence, we have to step back and understand who we really are and how we want to make our team members feel. If we can make them feel understood and noticed and that we're going to grow them, there's nothing they won't do from you. The whole point of this was to say, how do you create a high voltage culture, high performing team? And it's truly listen, understand, know their skills and abilities, communicate regularly, and be the leader they need in the moment. Be the leader they need. And there's different leadership styles that you have to know. And sometimes you got to be a visionary. Sometimes you got to be a pace setter. Sometimes you got to be democratic. Sometimes you got to be commanding. Like, we got to get this done. We have to do this. This is now or never. The team, we're up against, bottom of the ninth. Bases are loaded. If we fail, though, we're the Titanic. We hit an iceberg. We're going down. Got to figure it out. Be the leader.
Again, that's a lot of words and yet high voltage, because when we deep dive into this particular topic, there are a lot of things to learn. When we start learning, there'll be once you focus on how, suddenly it will be why. Once you understand this why, again how. Why you have to travel to each of these questions, certainly, and we discuss a lot of things here. So now with this question, we will just put this end on this technical stuff. Slowly we'll move to something else, and that is understanding Jeremiah in a better way with few questions. So are you ready for that? Now, one thing I would like to start with. So, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received, and how has it influenced your life?
Lead into conflict. And the reason why I say that is we live in a world of conflict. And if you see it, that's how so on the other side of fear is how you grow. So if you're scared of something and you feel like there's going to be conflict, lean into it because that's how you're going to grow. And you're going to eventually get the capacity and build a callus to be able to handle more and more and more. And that'll help you grow to become the person that you want to be at the end. Lean into conflict. Own it.
That's great. Yeah, we really to own it. Yeah. So, what is a skill or talent you have always wanted to learn but haven't had the chance to do it yet?
Is this in business or personal?
Anything,
Anything?
which kind of anything. Yeah,
Oh, play the
kind of
piano.
a personal one.
Play the piano. Well,
So you loved. Oh, okay. So you have you ever attended one of any of the live performance which kind of inspired you a lot?
say that again.
Any live performance, live orchestra you have attended recently,
Oh,
or
for
any memorable concert?
for music.
Yeah.
Oh, there's too many. There's so many. That's what I do on the side. Everything for me is music. So I love all different genres of music. Anything you can think of. I'm a very proficient guitar player and singer. I can play drums. I can tinker with the piano, but I love music, and that would be a long. I
You
couldn't.
have
I couldn't narrow that down.
you have any instruments with you now?
Yeah. So everything on this side of me over here is an actual recording studio.
Oh, oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now, other thing, if you had to describe yourself using a movie title or a quotation, so which movie it would be, or which quotation it would be, and why?
Um, the quote I would use to describe myself would be from Bruce Lee: absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and make the essentials your own. He says, and there's a different couple quotes. It's either make the essentials your own, make the essence your own. Um, Basically just saying that in the world, you have to find the things that work for you, get rid of the things that don't, and then make it your own so that you can be authentic. And that's one of my favorite things. And it's driven a lot of the ways I pretty much Bruce Lee, be water and lead with an empty cup have changed my life. I'm a martial artist as well. On this, that's one of my biggest
Always
passions.
curious to learn.
Yep, it's one of my biggest passions. And so I really got three: project management, martial arts, being Muay Thai, Jeet Kune Do, a bunch of other arts, and then music are my biggest, like what make me up as a person. And so, yeah. And then from a movie standpoint, um, I'd have to think on that. I don't know. That's a good one.
No problem. So when you talk about music, right, you love to play some instruments, or you love to sing, or what exactly?
When I do what?
You love to play any instruments, or you love to song?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, or you love to sing?
Yep, I do. Yeah, I've
So
I've I've done a lot of music in my career, and I've played. At one point, I was actually building, a rock career as I was going through and coming up in project management. I was actually doing this whole band on the side, and it was a lot of fun. And we were building a pretty good repertoire, and some we were getting some momentum. But it's just my thing. It's something I've always done, and I'm just naturally good at it. And it inspires people. It inspires me, and it really is. And it's and plus the learning of it, what it does for your brain and the neural pathways. When you talk about the cognitive level, it's really keeps you connected with yourself too. Be brilliant.
so that's great. Now we are almost done. So we approach the end time. So why don't we close our show with a beautiful music that you would like to sing, one or two lines for
Oh,
our audience?
you want me to sing?
Yeah, if you are comfortable, but
um,
we all love to hear.
are you going to sing with me? We'll do some. You want to do some Queen?
I would like to enjoy the music rather.
Oh man, you got me. Oh, my guitar's not even here. I do it. Next time I'm gonna be ready. That's you're doing acapella. Too bad. Is there any comments? Are there people here? If they named a song, we just sing it.
Oh, let me quickly check it out. Give me a
I was
minute.
gonna say, hey,
Something is
everybody, Mama, I just killed a man. There's some Queen for you. What? That's not a very good song.
But you can try anything that
Yeah.
you would love to, or any song that comes to your mind.
I'm good. I'm good for right now, but I appreciate it.
Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Just with this again, just quick note. So, what three tips you would like to give to all the entry level project managers there who are listening to us currently or will be listening to our YouTube channel? So, what are the three tips that you would like to give?
Three tips right now. One, focus on your emotional intelligence. Listen to Daniel Goleman. Go to Daniel Goleman's 12 competencies of emotional intelligence and create a plan around how you can grow that. That will help you exponentially. Two, I have to say, lean into conflict. That's really important. Into conflict. And then three, be the leader your team needs in the moment, meaning understand your team at the deepest level. So by understanding yourself at the deepest level and being inspired yourself, you can inspire others. So focus on those three things and you'll see that you will grow your career exponentially. Oh, let's go 4. Learn simply how to approach project management from a development approach, integration, communication, and risk management, right? And change management. If you do those things simply, you'll be able to work anywhere and communicate it. You'll be able to work anywhere in the world and you'll be super efficient.
Those are such golden words. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. Thanks everyone for your time. And with this note, we would like to conclude the show. So we'll certainly meet tomorrow with a new episode with a new guest. And stay tuned. Take care. Talk to you later again. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. Thanks for the golden words and have a good rest of the day.
Yep. Thank you all. See ya.
Thank you. Yeah.